So, hello everybody. We're very fortunate today to have Rob and Yeman talk to us about successfully applying Agile methods for high criticality systems, which has been a real challenge for Agile methods for quite some time, but a number of organizations have found ways to succeed at it, and there are frameworks such as the Scaled Agile framework that give you an approach for doing it. Robin has been doing this for at least 15 years. She's a Scaled Agile program consultant, certified enterprise coach, and basically the leader of Lockheed Martin's Agile Community of Practice and Center of Excellence. So again, Lockheed Martin does some extremely large, complex systems and has succeeded at doing them using Agile methods and getting high reliability systems. So I'll pass it on to Robin to explain what she's going to tell you about.
Okay. Thanks, you guys, for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about securing the delivery pipeline, so how to build security into Agile. So we at Lockheed, we've had to do a number of things to both scale Agile, right? So we're using things like the Scaled Agile Frameworks to work across a lot of teams. So teams like Orion, where we have 42 Agile teams building the next space vehicle, or Aegis, where we have 148 teams. But today I'm going to focus in on the security aspect, because one of the things that we need to do with our systems is to ensure that they're not just highly available and highly safe, but that they're secure as well. So basically, our main goals for these large systems are going to be defend, detect, and deter. And when I take a look at Agile, it used to be we thought of it only, in the beginning only in the software realm, then we integrated systems engineering, and now we're at a place where we're looking at the delivery pipeline from everything from software, systems engineering, to hardware. So slide 5 or 6. Okay, so I'm in slide 6, and here you can see that we begin with the product backlog, right? So just like before, we have all of the things that we need to make this system work. And usually now when I start up new teams, what I want to do is not just focus on the building stories, the business function stories, but also how I make sure that they're secure. So we develop security stories and security enablers. And then as we're building those, we make sure that we have security skills on our cross-functional teams. Right, so that's important. And as we're running through things like continuous integration, automated delivery, we want to begin with, right at the beginning, some lightweight threat modeling, right? So we begin those 2-week sprints with lightweight threat modeling to understand kind of what I'm touching, where I'm touching it, and where the risk lies. Then I'm going to leverage secure design principles, which we have to spend, a lot of time making sure that we've taught everybody so that they have a good understanding of what they are. Defensive coding techniques, so we've worked a lot to make sure we've had enough training or that we're building engineers that have secure coding. And as we check in things like software, we want to make sure that we're looking at dynamic analysis. So dynamic analysis is going to allow us to see kind of changes in the bits or the bytes. And then we will go ahead and do some, some automated bus testing, although we still have quite a bit of it manual. All right, slide 7. I know that most of you already know the difference between Agile and Waterfall, but usually when I'm kicking off new programs or kicking off teams, I have to show them. The big thing is one of the things we had to make sure is the work is the same. Back in, let's say, 2004, 2005, we'd start off Agile programs and they say, hey, we're Agile, so we don't need, you know, high-level requirements. We can just use user stories. Or we don't need detailed design. Or, right, all of those things that actually, yes, indeed, we absolutely need. The difference is we're shrinking the batch size, right? So, you know, first you had the waterfall, then you shrunk it a little bit with the spiral, you shrunk that batch size, and now we're moving down even smaller, right, into Agile. And the things that enable that are tools that help with us doing automation and things of that nature. That way we're not removing any of the quality. But the work is still the same. I still have them all. So what I'm going to talk to you about is I'm going to walk you through the development lifecycle and show you all the places where security touches. Okay? Slide 8. So I'm going to walk you through the lifecycle. Now, one of the things that I want to make sure that everybody understands is when we're looking at Agile, we're trying to look more at activities, not phases, because we're going to repeat these, right? We're not going to do requirements just once or design just once, but we're going to do all of the same types of work. We'll start with requirements. Here, we focus on making sure we have those cross-functional teams, but with some security expertise built in. Now, we don't have enough resources to put a cyber secure engineer or CISSP on every team, but we do have the ability to at least ensure that we've got liaisons with those skills. We include security in the backlog and leverage things from things like, you know, OWASP, which talks about security test-driven development, and security RMS. Some of the tools that we use during this activity are going to be personas, misuser stories, and security stories. Okay, so you can see here, I've got my cross-functional teams, I've got my personas, Harry Hacker, I have a definition of done, so I have to make sure that I've done my security work, and then I've got both hacker and security stories. Because not everybody thinks about how somebody's going to exploit their work. It took us time just to think about how somebody was going to break our work. So this is taking it to the next level where people are going to, on purpose, try to exploit it, which means that we have to build cyber in at every step. Next thing we'll talk about is design, right? So during the design activities, again, we still have those cross-functional teams. The processes we're going to take on are things like threat modeling, just lightweight threat modeling, and security design principles. Some of the tools that we're going to make use of are things like open design, security traceability matrix, and then a security service catalog. Right? So got my product backlog, security design principles, and that service catalog lets me see what I've already done before and to make light work of new stuff and what I have yet to come. Lightweight threat modeling, especially for those areas that are high risk. So as we're looking at, you know, our products, right, what are the pieces that have a lot of interfaces that touch a lot of things that affect everybody? And I'm probably going to put more emphasis on those than, let's say, the pieces of the system that impact a smaller set. And then we have our teams make sure they build out their security matrix. Right, so the security matrix lets you know where the likelihood of attacks are going to be. When I get into development, there's a lot I can do. Really having the understanding of not just how to build products, but how to break them or exploit them is critical. In order to do that, we have to practice, right? And some of the processes we're going to do is to further help our defensive programming, to make use of things like compartmentalization, feature toggles, because those will help us get back to a known state quicker. Self-service security, which means that everybody, right, because we can leverage infrastructure as code to do automated security scanning, at least at a high level, on their own code before we even check it in, right? Doesn't mean that it foregoes the security that our CISSPs do, but it means we've got the answer to the test question before we get there. Some of the tools we're going to make use of are secure infrastructure, continuous integration, static analysis, and our audit defense toolkit. We actually have some teams who are able to, through their continuous integration process, using Agile, find vulnerabilities before they've even been reported, right? Because they're using both these dynamic and static analysis. So this would be an example of what that might look like, right? So on the dev team, I'm looking at things like defensive programming. Feature toggles are great. There's small pieces of logic around your code that lets you turn it on and off so that you can get back to a known state. If I put something new in there, I can quickly back it out if I need to. By securing our images right before, in the past we were looking at bare metal and building up our environments, etc. But now we've got virtualization. We can leverage things like containers, which allow us to secure those. And if I use that image, right, it's already secured, which lets me rapidly get new environments out to people. Now, as we move into tests, again, a lot of things that we can do. So here, we're going to make sure that we have automated testing. This has been a real challenge, but over time, we've built up this skill set. So test automation on Agile projects is critical because we're incrementally building small pieces, and we're going to be touching parts of the system over and over and over again. So where during Waterfall it was important, test automation was great, in Agile I would say it's critical. Otherwise you're going to repeatedly break yourself, and we don't have the time or the resources for that. So we had to build those. Some of the processes that you're going to make use of at this place in testing is things like buzz testing, right? We're going to inject problems, chaos engineering, leveraging security test cases, risk-based testing, because we can't test it all, right? So you've got to find those high-risk areas, penetration testing, right? So we're going to layer those security test levels. So when you take a look at this, we're going to begin with security testing. Just like Agile always uses, we use things like test-driven development at the unit level or acceptance test-driven development up at the higher level, functional level. OAuth, which is a key resource, uses security test-driven development, which allows us to begin with how do I prove it's secure? What are those test cases before I build anything, right? From there, once I've built something, I'm going to run it through both dynamic and static analysis to identify if there are problems. Right? Before I've even checked it in, I'm going to run it through. From there, I don't want to just look at things that are going well. I want to inject problems and see how resilient my systems are. Because if they're not resilient, when I do have a real problem or an external problem coming in, I can't respond to it. So you can consider this almost like fire drills for building your system. I'm going to triage those results. One of the problems you can get is a lot of false positives, right? Again, we're limited in resources, so we have to maximize our resources and where they can be most helpful, right? So if I can do some automation to triage out those results and I'm only looking at real issues, that's better use of our free time. I'm looking at risk-based testing. And the reason we use risk-based testing is because you can't test every single possible case. So I really want to make sure that I hit those areas that have the highest degree of risk and could cause the most damage if they were, affected. We're going to make use of penetration testing. Now, we've been doing that in security programs for years. We want to shift that left and try to get some of that automated. And that's what we've been doing with our development team, so that it doesn't forego the penetration testing that we're doing when we have the system done, but it makes sure that as we're going along, we're incrementally verifying it. Then we'll set out some security test reports. Again, we want to make sure everybody has transparency and visibility into what we're building and what our current state is. And then the last thing would be leveraging tools that will help with automated security attacks. Because if you're not trying that out and pushing the boundaries of your system, you're going to find out where the weaknesses are, but you're going to find out where they are in operations when they can have a much higher impact. The next activity where we're going to look at security is going to be in the deployment area, right? So we talked about requirements, design, implementation, tests. Now, what can I do to deploy? What can I make? How can I make that safe? Right? And so most projects we build are for government customers. They require various forms of accreditation depending on the customer type to get IATO, which would be interim authority to proceed, and then ATO, which is authority to proceed. That's where we can move a solution into their space and it's accredited to be used, right? So we can't just move a product and say, hey, it's ready for use. It has to be accredited for it. So what are the things we're looking at this stage? Well, when we start doing this type of work, again, we still want to do hacking. We still want to have automated test needs, and we should definitely have operations in the loop, which we do, because we're pushing more and more towards a DevOps or DevOpSec, so trying to extend that value stream from Agile all the way into operations. Some of the processes we make use of here are securing the infrastructure, right? So making use of infrastructure as code, then accrediting that infrastructure, and then, using it. So infrastructure as code allows you to rapidly take a container and move it out to other places. Making use of dark rollouts and canary releases. Some of the tools that we use are going to be immutable infrastructure and containers. Right? So secure deployments, they're going to make it easier for everybody to breathe when we deploy something new. Right? We used to, especially on Agile programs, because the thought was they were less secure, they were less disciplined, that we were just pushing stuff out into operations, which is not the case. In my opinion, Agile is even more disciplined than basically traditional. Why? Because I constantly am having to adjust and adapt, review that in-stone plan, and I have to have an entire idea of what I'm building. So, secure deployment, some of the things, like I said, having a central package repository, so that immutable infrastructure, having those containers tell me exactly what's in there. I can identify exactly which ones have vulnerabilities. In the past, we would have what you would call kind of snowflake environment. So a snowflake environment is the case where you have every development environment or test environment that's just a little bit different than the other environment. By creating recipes for our infrastructure, we're able to remove that variance, right? And by removing that variance, when we do find a vulnerability, it's very easy to fix, right? So as opposed to having to go to 100 different servers to, fix each one or patch each one, I can go to the image and deploy that out. Some of the considerations, things like leveraging our load balancers to push a piece of new work out onto the operational hardware, again, and limit the amount of activity that goes there so that we can try it out and ensure that it's safe. Or as we build more and more feature toggles, right, so turning on and off pieces of code, as we build that up, we're able to push things out and try them out for a subset of users, right? I could try it out internally, then I could try it out for maybe some data looking, and I could try it out for a wider range of users until and if I find a problem. The benefit of this approach is it gets me back to a known state, which is what I need the most, fast. Right? When I say fast, in seconds, not hours. The last thing that we've spent a lot of time on is operations and monitoring, right? So we want to make sure that everything we do is monitored. I need to look at network monitoring, infrastructure monitoring, application monitoring, right? What is happening? I need situational awareness of those products and services, right? So again, same sort of team, cross-functional, with all the skills I need. Some of the processes or things that we're going to take advantage of would be attack-driven defense, game-based, red team, blue team, which I know is old news, been using those for a while, but not old news in an agile environment. So we had to spend a lot of time making sure we could fit all of these things in a tight timeline, rapid delivery. Chaos engineering and blameless postmortem. Some of the tools, things like the chaos monkey, the chaos gorilla, logging and monitoring, runtime defense, and bug bounties, which are not new for the commercial environment, but for the defense industry has been a little longer in coming. Right, so chaos engineering, I can tell you that the department, the DHS, Department of Homeland Security, was able to put the chaos monkey right into the Customs and Border Patrol operational system and prove, right, because the chaos monkey is basically taking things down, that his code and his infrastructure was robust, right? So didn't need anybody to call in and say there was a problem. Basically said, oh, there's the services going down. Oh, there's my code coming back up and self-healing. Things like game days, right, allow us to kind of run through, make sure the system is ready. We can do some fire drills. We can try, breaking the system, see what's going on there, and put those results, again, into the product backlog so we feed them back into our process. Leveraging things like red team and blue team provides us fast feedback, again, critical for an agile delivery. So looking at things like mean time to attack, how quickly can I get in, mean time to detect that attack, mean time to repair, excellent metrics to prove that my system is, no kidding, resilient, safe, and secure. All of these result in secure agile solutions. And I believe due to the nature of Agile and how we incrementally build up these solutions and get regular feedback, that Agile actually promotes and improves our level of security. So what's the future? I would say the future is DevOpSec or DevSecOps or whatever we want to call that, because I get a variety of names from people. We want to be able to seamlessly integrate security into the pipeline and assure everybody to take responsibility while shortening the feedback loop. Now, what you see here is the feedback highway, and basically each step allows me to have a little more information, right? So we talked about all of the phases, or actually all of the activities of building Agile products and services. So each step gives me a little more information. Right, so review, unit test, continuous integration, continuous deployment, automated V&V, production monitoring, game days, red, blue teams, all the way out to the hacker themselves. Each one provides me more information. What we do is feed that to the security community through our intelligence highway, back to the security team, and up through our development. So each of these comes down, feeds back into so that we can further improve our process. In the past, we had security kind of an afterthought. We focused on, securing the network, but as we're all learning, it's really the boundaries and where those services are that you're finding the most problems, right? So 84% of all vulnerabilities really found in the application layer. So if we're not enabling our team to consistently get feedback and harden that code within there, then our own developers would be our biggest vulnerability. So the been able to kind of move past that. This is just an example, one example of an automated security pipeline, right? And there's tools for each one of these, right? And I didn't put the tools in because we can get into kind of a tool war, and everybody's got their preference. But these are the types of tools and the types of things that we put into our system to enable that higher quality, to build those secure systems. Oh, I do have them. Well, these are just examples. All right, and that at a high level is how we leverage Agile and cybersecurity to build secure, safety-critical systems. All right. And this is the risk management framework associated with how we integrate it into Agile.
Yeah, on chart 28, you have a chart that has somebody that is orchestrating in the middle.
Orchestration, yes.
This looks like an incredibly complex thing to orchestrate. Do you have sort of a career path to where you can be the conductor, or how do you find people that can really do all these things at once?
Well, this is, so there's orchestration software. It's really an automated tool. Yes, you absolutely have to have people that understand the entire value stream end to end from the time I deliver to the time I get to operations. We regularly have to build out those skills. Nobody has them all. And then using things like, for example, a stack storm to help orchestrate the incoming work and the items that we got from threat modeling allow us to determine which things have to be manually assessed and which ones could be automated.
Oh, good. Are there questions from the audience?
Yes, we do have some questions. Let me just try to pull it up. 1 second. In the Q&A, I don't know, Robin, if you can see in the Q&A, could you say a few words about accommodating change, such as when major changes must be made when well advanced in development, and when major changes must be accommodated in a deployed system that was built using Agile techniques?
So accommodating change, the way we handle that is through multiple horizons of planning. I think that in the past we've always had to accommodate change, but here, in Agile, we're basically saying, yes, no kidding, we know it's coming, so how do we manage it? So how do we handle it? Usually for most of our large projects, right, so for things like Orion or the integrated fighter jet, we're going to have a high-level program plan, which will go the length of the program. It could be multiple years. In many cases, it is multiple years. Usually we break that down into an annual plan, right? So that's the next horizon. The next thing would be we break it down into a quarterly plan. And then we break that, usually I leverage kind of 6 2-week sprints in that quarterly plan. And then the next thing is we break that down into a daily plan. Now, because of the multiple horizons, we have multiple places to review the work and review if we need to make adjustments, minor pivots. If it's, and we have to look far enough ahead of time with a lot of our systems, because if it's going to impact hardware or something with a long lead item, I need to know well in advance. There's other things that I can accommodate that if they're only going to affect, let's say, pieces of the software, or even better, a configuration file, that timeline gets much shorter, but you need to be able to see the whole picture in order to accommodate change at those different places. And then the other thing I would say is you want to make sure that you're leveraging a product owner or somebody that's managing that backlog, if you're not using Scrum, to verify, depending on your contract type, whether it's firm fixed price or a CPAF or all different kinds of things like that, to leverage that you're not adding scope creep. So you've got to look at impact as well.
Okay, great. We had another question from Sue, and Sue, I'm apologizing that I lost a little bit of your question, but she asked, what, how, and when often do you expect the government customer to participate in your Agile programs?
So the more often they can participate, the better. Usually my approach is that I invite them to everything, right? And depending on the resource availability, because you know, our government customers are really busy and they have a lot on their plate, right? So I invite them to, you know, all of the demonstrations, you know, to review the product, for multiple kind of technical exchanges, analysts to, you know, to discuss work with, you know, what we're building. So a lot of times my government customers will have a full-time job, so they don't necessarily have time to, let's say, be the product owner, where in the commercial space they would be. So I'll put in a product owner liaison that's basically running around making sure they get their data. But what I would tell you is ideally every week. But I can manage, you know, much further timelines, but the shorter and the more often that we get that engagement at those touch points, the better the product will be and the less waste, because we'll have exactly what they want to build as opposed to what they thought they might have wanted, but then when they saw it, it was really not quite right.
Okay, great. And we had one more question. Safe, scaled, agile framework was mentioned at some point. I think this user might have missed some of the earlier slides, but did you start from safe and then tailor in security, or was this approach developed in parallel apart from safe? And then a follow-up corollary, the corollary, does the organization in question users have to use safe?
So we at Lockheed have used multiple scaling frameworks, right? We started doing Agile in 2002, pretty much when the intelligence community started requiring it. So we've leveraged a variety of frameworks. Scrum of Scrums, we've had teams use Nexus, we've had others use the DAD, Scott Ambler's Disciplined Agile Delivery, and we've had many use the Scaled Agile Framework. Now, in 2012, we did a trade study across the frameworks that were available at the time and found that for our type of work and our customers, that SAFe, the Scaled Agile Framework, works best. I know that many say it's very prescriptive, and it is. But if you're coming from a very, very prescriptive environment, it's a range to get all the way to continuous delivery, right? So it's actually a good starting place, if not the ending place, for a lot of our government customers. And so we started with a variety of scaling frameworks. We kind of settled in on using the Scaled Agile Framework. And because it's a framework, we've added, right? So security is really important to us, and there hasn't been a lot of work in that area done in some of the frameworks. So we've tailored that in. Do we need to use SAFe? Absolutely not. We have programs over in Australia that use less, which is, you know, large-scale Scrum. So what you need is a framework. You need to understand whether you have to scale or not. You need to understand what are your horizons of planning, and you should have somebody with experience and skill in implementing disciplined agility. And with those, you could either build your own framework or tailor any of the existing frameworks to work for you.
Okay, great. We have one last question, I believe, from Jack Ring. When fault is found in deployed software and 2 or more releases have transpired, how do you identify all affected modules? So when a defect is found, if I understand correctly, in deployed software for one or more releases, how do I find where it happened? Well, one of the things we leverage is creating an integrated performance measurement baseline for Agile, right? So we integrate our tool chain, so we link our requirements to our backlog, to our test cases,
to our configuration management repository. With each and every check-in, we use the user story ID as part of the unique identifier for the check-in to, let's say, Git or Subversion or Material, because we don't just have one repository. So with each check-in, we leverage that, and if a defect is escaped or found, right, we have complete traceability from the originating requirement all the way into the code base and when it was put in, because you can get basically a timestamp or a tag. So it's pretty easy to find when that the vulnerability or the defect was put in, even if we didn't come across it right away. And obviously, if I've had multiple releases, if it's been touched twice, then it was missed twice. So that's how we do that.
Okay, we just have Jack commented, but testing does not find all faults.
Absolutely.
Yep. And then just one more follow-up from Sue. Have you applied this framework in a hardware development or software hardware parallel development? If so, what are the challenges?
So everything, or not everything, but most things we at Lockheed Martin build require software, hardware, electronics, and so absolutely, we've applied it on programs, like I said, such as Orion, Aegis, which is a combat system, the integrated fighter jet group, so F-16, pieces of F-22. The challenges. Well, the challenges are understanding first the timeline, because a lot of times engineers will look at it and say, hey, I can't do a 2-week sprint because it's hardware. And, obviously we're not deploying hardware every 2 weeks. We're not deploying an F-22 every 2 weeks by any stretch. What are we doing? We're basically building on a cadence and deploying on demand, which means whether it's hardware, software, electronics, or otherwise, I'm getting visibility on what I'm creating, whatever that work product is, every 2 weeks by the consumer of that product, right? So we spend most of our time ensuring that we can decompose our work using good systems engineering methods, and then we can get visibility into the work and find those problems. But that's usually a challenge initially for our hardware folks, because they'll say, oh, Agile is for software. But I would tell you that I think that many of the practices resulted from things like Lean, right, which actually came out of manufacturing, which came out of hardware. So the big challenge, I would say, is nomenclature, or the language and terminology we're using. But once we start looking at work is work, then we start to overcome some of those barriers.
Let's see, Robin, a related question. I would imagine a fair number of your projects are part of a system of systems where the other systems are using different methods, processes, and tools. So what kind of challenges and solutions have you found for things like that?
So you're absolutely right, Barry. We're frequently working within a system of systems, and each one has a different, let's say, approach to delivering their product, whether it's Waterfall, Spiral, or Agile. So that multiple horizons of planning is key, right? Because first I want to understand what the products are, and then look at what those key integration points are. So we have to identify those key integration points. Maybe they're not going to be every couple of weeks, maybe they're not even going to be every month, but we have to basically put a line in the sand on when those key integration points are and come together, and make sure that everybody has visibility into what that high-level schedule looks like. So as you're building, when can we come together? And the more often we can do it, the better, but the fact is we have a lot of suppliers, or, we're not always prime. We could be working with another prime contractor, and
right. So
some of those integration points could be all the way out, 6 to 8 months to a year. So the better, the shorter they are.
Okay, any other questions? Well, Robin, go ahead.
Oh, no, I had nothing.
Somebody have a question?
No, I think we're all caught up.
Okay. Well, Robin, this has been a super enlightening presentation, and it's very impressive how well you've got everything synchronized and organized and security integrated. So I think yeah, people should be a little bit more comfortable that the systems the DoD is getting are if they follow things like this, they're going to be a lot more secure than they've been in the past. So we really appreciate your presentation and all of the hard work and smart engineering that went behind it. So thanks again. And any final message from the SERC?
And the only other thing, Robin, if you could just advance to the last slide, just to continue this conversation. We have one more SERC talk coming up in June, so I hope that all of you will join and invite others to participate in that conversation on June 6th.
Okay, thanks everybody for participating, and let us know if you have other questions. I think we're posting the slides somewhere.
Yes, the slides are already on the SERC website, and the video will be available within the next day.
Great, super.
Great.
Okay. Goodbye,
Thank you,
everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robin.
Okay, bye.